Welcome in live here to Microsoft Teams Chat Raider Student Media Sports Team, as it is RaiderZone Episode 3 virtually, the podcast, not the radio show, as we adjust to everything going on in our lives now via COVID-19. Can't be in the studio together, too many of us, too small of a place. So we take our talents to the online platform, and that is where we'll discuss sports once again, as I'm Will Brienza, and I'll send it to you guys to introduce yourselves once again. Jacob, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I'm Jacob Bouthard, back in the honors house again, and just waiting on the NBA to come back now.
There you go. Alex?
I'm Alexandria Patron, and I am back in the pink room for episode 3.
There we go. And Brendan?
Brendan and Vinny over on the west side? No, east side of campus. The townhouses.
East side.
Living real life.
There we go. So, per usual, we usually end on the sport that's going on. So we'll start with a little bit of MLB, NBA, and then we'll get into Masters, college football, and the NFL, and round things up with last call as always. So we'll start with the MLB. In recent news, the Boston Red Sox rehire Alex Cora to manage the team to a 2-year contract. He faced a 1-year suspension due to the Houston scandal. They thought maybe he had something to do with it, and he received a 1-year suspension because he was on that coaching staff, which led to a mutual breakup with the Red Sox. But after serving that 1-year suspension, they're ready to bring him back in after going 24-36 in the regular season this year. Did this surprise you at all? Brendan, we'll start with you.
Yeah, it definitely surprised me. Like, it was one of those things where you open up Twitter and it's like Alex Cora hired back as Red Sox manager. Like, what the heck? Like,
I knew that hoax or like a retweet from 3 years ago.
Yeah, like from a spoof account or something like that.
Yeah.
I nearly weren't gonna keep Ron Renicky. Is how you say his name. He just was not going to cut it. The Red Sox just had an awful season this year. But I can't blame Boston. He, winning seasons every year brings you a World Series championship. I can't say, to what extent he had an involvement with the Astros cheating scandal, and the Red Sox were involved too. But he knows how to win. Has been winning his entire career. If he's a winner, keep him on. I hate the Red Sox more than anyone else, but I can't blame the hiring.
Alex, your thoughts? Do you like the rehire, or you still think he's in the wrong?
I kind of agree with Brendan. I think it's a little bit of a huge surprise because of all the tension that went on. It's kind of like, whoa, now it's coming back after a year. But, he has skill. He knows he's led them to victory. And I think if he's going to continue to do so in the future years, then I guess why not? You can't really, like you said, you can't blame the hiring, because if he's going to lead them to victory, then so be it. But it does raise the question for what might happen in the future as far as future scandals going on.
Jacob, I know you're itching to talk about this topic.
Yeah, so I agree with everything too, except for the hating Red Sox part, because I love my Red Sox a lot. But yeah, it really did surprise me a lot. Coming off a cheating scandal like that, I'm not necessarily saying he cheated or not, because he wasn't really a huge part of it. In the Boston side, I know in Houston he most definitely was. But coming off a scandal like that and only really taking a year off is kind of like, it's just really different to me. I wasn't really expecting it, but it's a great hire by the Red Sox. You had guys on the team like Jackie Bradley Jr. when he got fired, basically crying like they just lost their best friend. So that just makes the clubhouse a good place to be again, because everybody loves Alex Cora. So he has a totally different roster now, especially without like Mookie Betts and really a healthy pitching staff. So I don't necessarily know if he's going to have the same success that he did his first go-around, but it's definitely a good hire for the Red Sox. It gets morale up, and who knows, maybe they'll start winning again.
Yeah, and I agree. It was a shock, if anything, when I got on ESPN to add things to what we were going to talk about today, I had to do a double take, honestly, because I agree with Brendan. I was like, is this a joke? Like, it's not April 1st, so it can't be April Fool's joke. But and I'm sorry to say this about the Red Sox, Jacob, but to me, it kind of shows desperation a little bit.
I agree on that. I do agree with that. They have such a high payroll.
Yeah.
They want to get the most out of the payroll before they know they have to start cutting guys. So, yeah it's definitely desperation on that part.
They know he can win. And instead of working through another coach without that certainty, they're like, we'll just go back, whether it may be an ethical dilemma or not the most morally correct decision. We have too much talent to waste, like you said. To waste it because we can't find the right coach. So it's a little bit of a desperation, but they already lost Mookie, like you said. They want to get guys like Xander Bogaerts and Andrew Benintendi. You said Jackie Bradley, just Alex Verdugo. The list goes on. They have a lot of talent. It's just they're literally missing the manager, and I think that's where the desperation comes in. You want to get it before you lose the players because then you're really off balance at that point. So moving on to the next topic, the Cleveland Indians are expected to deal Francisco Lindor this offseason. Where do you guys see him going? Jacob, we'll start with you.
So this is a hard one for me. I don't really know if one team's above the other for me. I definitely think it's a big market team, though. He's definitely going to get paid, and the big market teams can definitely pay him. But after looking at it, I really think Steve Cohen coming in as the main man now over in New York with the Mets, he's going to want to compete with the Yankees. And a great way to compete with the Yankees is getting an all-world talent like Francisco Lindor. So I can definitely see him going to the Mets. And I look at a team like the LA Angels, who Andrelton Simmons is a free agent right now. You don't necessarily know if he's coming back. Maybe they go all in and get Francisco Lindor. But honestly, between those two teams, I really do think it would be the Mets just because Steve Cohen wants to bring relevancy back to the Mets, and hopefully they can beat the Yankees. I still don't think Frankie would be necessarily the only piece that they would need to get better than the Yankees, but he's definitely a great start. And it would show that Steve Cohen's all in on building a winner in New York.
For sure. Brendan.
Yeah, I definitely agree that he'll probably go to a large market team. But I think another thing you have to keep in mind is who can the Indians get in return for him. You're going to give away your number one shortstop. And historically, the Indians have always had a stellar shortstop, whether it's Asdrubal Cabrera, Omar Vizquel, even the Johnny Peralta years. He's a really good shortstop. So, I mean, if you're looking at the Dodgers, you can get Chris Taylor in return for him there. Get a good shortstop. I mean, he can play anywhere. The Mets, they have a really solid depth rotation at shortstop. They have about three guys that can move. But if you're looking at the Yankees, that's been in talks about getting Lindor. You're probably not going to get their shortstop. I mean, Didi Gregorius could move. I mean, he's been on in trade rumors. So, I don't know, anywhere that they're going to get a good deal in return for Lindor, because he's too big of a name, too good of a talent not to get a solid load in return for him.
Alex, where do you see Lindor going?
Yeah, kind of the same thing. I just think to lose just to lose him, I think it's going to be a huge loss for the Indians, because kind of like Brendan touched on, the Indians have had a history with having just amazing shortstops. And I feel like Francisco Lindor, I think he's just one of those outstanding shortstops. I think for Cleveland, it's just going to be a huge loss. But I also agree. I mean, for him to be back out not with the Indians, he's probably going to go somewhere large market. Off the top of my head, I was thinking Los Angeles specifically. I don't know. Personally, I think it would hurt if he went to New York, but that's just my opinion. But bottom line, I think it's going to be really disappointing not to see Francisco Lindor with the Indians anymore. But if he were to go anywhere, I think it would probably be Los Angeles.
Yeah, and I agree with Jacob on this one. The Mets. I don't see them going to the Yankees. They just have too much talent in the infield. The Dodgers, they have Corey Seager coming off one of the best postseasons a player can have. I think the Mets, too, because Steve Cohen has also talked about how he's going to reach out to the Dolans about acquiring Chris Antonetti. And I don't know if you guys heard about that, but maybe he just wants Antonetti is a god when it comes to MLB executives. He just is trapped in a situation where the owners don't let him do what he can do, and I think Cohen would allow him to have that, and I think Antonetti would be all about going to New York, and I think Lindor would be as well because they have the money to pay him, and he'd be joining guys like Pete Alonso, a very good pitching staff. So I think Mets, not only do I think that's what's going to happen, I think it might be the perfect scenario for Lindor. So if it happens, I'm going to have to add to my baseball jersey collection, get a Lindor Mets jersey, decide the color scheme later, but I had a Santana
For
Philly.
me, Lindor getting traded from Cleveland, personally, I'm going to feel the same way about LeBron leaving Cleveland. Like, I'm not a Lakers fan, but I am a LeBron fan.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna stay a Lindor fan, but I'm not gonna be a Mets fan. Like, I'm just too attached to him now.
Exactly. And that's exactly how I feel, so I have to get his jersey. So moving on, it's awards week, guys. So Rookie of the Year was just announced today. For the American League, Seattle's Kyle Lewis was the unanimous Rookie of the Year. And for the National League, it was Devin Williams, who put up pretty good numbers for a rookie pitcher for the Brewers. Those were announced today. We're going to make our picks for what's coming the rest of the week. So Tuesday night, we have Manager of the Year. Wednesday night, Cy Young. And Thursday night, the big daddy of them all, MVP. So I'll go through each and just give me your two winners and why. We'll start with Manager of the Year, which again is tomorrow night. For the American League, the finalists, Tampa Bay's Kevin Cash, Toronto's Charlie Montoya, and Chicago's Rick Renneria. For the National League, Miami's Don Mattingly, Chicago's David Ross, and San Diego's Jace Tingler. Brendan, we'll start with you. Who are your two Manager of the Year and why?
Well, for American League, I would have said Kevin Cash, but that decision in Game 6 of the World Series kind of weakens my respect for him, so I'm going to go say Rick Renteria. That guy's just getting started, or was about to get started before they made the move and brought in Tony La Russa, but did a great job with the White Sox this year, put them in contention. Could not go any further in the playoffs, but I'll probably be wrong. It'll probably be Kevin Cash. For the National League, heck of a job Don Mattingly did with the Marlins, bringing that franchise back to a winning form. Had to deal with that massive COVID outbreak and still kept the team in contention and brought the postseason back to Miami. That guy's a winner and just shows that he can win wherever he goes.
Jacob, who are your Managers of the Year?
So I completely agree with Brendan. On the NL side, it's Don Mattingly for sure. You come off in a 100-loss season and you somehow make it to the second round of the playoffs. Like, that's just crazy to think about. And for the AL, I was kind of thinking Rick Renteria too, but I know Kevin Cash made that costly mistake. I'm still going to pick him as my AL Manager of the Year, just basically because I never would have thought the Rays would have won the AL East this year in the fashion that they did. I didn't think that they would necessarily be the best team in the AL throughout the regular season. And the fact that they maintained it throughout the postseason and were very close to winning a World Series championship, I think just shows how good of a job Kevin Cash did, with the exception of course, pulling out Blake Snell. So for me, it's definitely AL Kevin Cash and NL Don Mattingly.
Alex, Managers of the Year.
I'm going to stick probably unanimous for this one. As far as AL, I am going to stick with Kevin Cash as well. Because, I mean, albeit he made that huge, huge costly mistake with the World Series, and it stung a lot. But I just feel like, especially over the past season, he's had the reputation and lots of success with the team. So something tells me that in the end, he's still going to end up winning it. And I think for the NL, I think Don Mattingly is also going to be up there as well for them too.
When I looked at this, I was kind of shocked to see David Ross as a finalist. But I agree with both Jacob and Alex, American League, Kevin Cash, because it is, despite it being picked very late, it is a regular season award. So, yes, his mistake in the World Series was costly, cost him a ring. But to do what he did with the salary, total salary of that team, and to make it as far as he did with the Dodgers having 3 players make more than the whole team's salary in Tampa Bay, I think is very impressive. Now, for the National League, I agree, Don Mattingly, anybody that can take an 100-loss team to the playoffs next season definitely deserves the honor. And you see a reoccurring theme. A lot of the time they pick those coaches that bounced back. And Don Mattingly did it bigger than ever. To make the playoffs after 100-loss season is astonishing. And now, like I said, this is a regular season award, so this won't be counted. But he also did beat Chicago in a playoff series. So great job by the Marlins and Don Mattingly. Jeter has the right guy managing the team, that's for sure. Now we'll move on to Cy Youngs. I don't even know if we need to talk about the American League. The finalists are Shane Bieber, Kenta Maeda, and Hyunjin Ryu. I think Shane Bieber would win a Cy Young even if there was just one for the whole MLB. If you guys have any differences, speak up. But I think it's pretty blatantly obvious a guy that leads the MLB and wins ERA and strikeouts, the whole MLB, is going to win the American League Cy Young. Now for the National League,
I don't have any differences with that. I think he should have got AL MVP consideration. That's just me, because when you're that dominant, I don't see how you're not AL MVP. That's just me, though.
Yeah, and we'll get into that for sure. For the National League Cy Young, Trevor Bauer out of Cincinnati, Yu Darvish with the Cubs, and the guy that's, I think, an automatic bid to the finals when it comes to this award, Jacob deGrom from the Mets. Jacob, we'll start with you. Who's your National League Cy Young and American League if you don't believe it's Bieber?
Definitely Bieber for AL. NL, I was going back and forth between Yu Darvish and Trevor Bauer. Trevor Bauer's win-loss isn't very good, 5-4, but at the same time, he has a 1.73 ERA, and he's just a strikeout machine. So it's Trevor Bauer for me too, which is kind of ironic to think that 2 Indians, one's a former Indian now, would have won both Cy Youngs. That just shows how great their pitching staff's been over the years. But yeah, definitely Trevor Bauer gets a slight edge for me over Yu Darvish, but Yu Darvish still had a heck of a season and still definitely has a case for winning the Cy Young.
Alex, National League Cy Young. I think you're muted still.
I'm sorry.
There we go.
It didn't click right away. Oh, boy. Yeah, I'm going to have to stick with Trevor Bauer and Shane Bieber for my 2. Definitely 100%. I think, especially after the season, I think they both deserve it for their respective leagues.
And Brandon.
Definitely Bieber for the American League. And it just goes to show how amazing the Indians have drafted pitching and developed pitching. So I'm going with Trevor Bauer for the National League as well. He did not get much help in his outings, like those 4 losses that he had. Did not get much help from that Reds lineup. That just was not elite enough this year. But I just love his swagger out on the mound, his charisma, trying to make baseball exciting. And he backs it all up with outstanding pitching, 1.73 ERA. The dude's a hype machine. I love it. And he's finally going to get that Cy Young that he's been striving for and has deserved when he was with the Indians.
And I agree. I think it's Trevor Bauer as well. Yu Darvish had a great, I would say 50 games. His last two starts weren't as good. But Trevor Bauer did it for a full season. Whenever you can get a sub-2 ERA, you're doing something right. And you're exactly right. That goes to show, though, how dominant Shane Bieber was. And when you look at that aspect of it, the bats weren't backing up either of the two guys I think are going to take home hardware on Wednesday night. But Bieber was so dominant that he still was able to lead the MLB in wins. Bauer just not as fortunate there. The bat, it seems like every time he took on the mound, the other pitcher threw a shutout, which it's hard to win when your team's not scoring runs. So no blame to him at all. Now moving on to MVP Thursday night. For the American League, the finalists are Jose Abreu of Chicago, DJ LeMahieu of New York, and Jose Ramirez of Cleveland. And for the National League, Mookie Betts of the Dodgers, Freddie Freeman for the Braves, and Manny Machado of the Padres. Brendan, we'll start with you. Who are your most valuable players?
The American League, I'm kind of surprised that these are the finalists. They all kind of didn't have outstanding years. Jose Ramirez just kind of got hot at the end of the year there. It's not like he had a full 60-game season where he was consistent. I don't think he'll get it, but I'll probably go with Jose Abreu. One of the reasons why the White Sox had a winning year finally. He's been consistent his entire career. And the National League, pretty easy for me. Mookie Betts, no doubt. I think he's the most exciting player in baseball. I think he's the best player in all of baseball. You can debate that every day. But the other two guys, Freddie Freeman, washed up. And I don't know how Manny Machado got to be one of the finalists. I would have picked Tatis over him. But those are my two.
Jacob.
So I agree with Brendan that I don't really understand the AL's list of guys that are up for the MVP. Still sticking by Shane Bieber should win the award, even though he's not even up for the award. But of the guys that are up for the award, I agree with Brendan. It's Jose Abreu. He's the big reason, for me at least, why the White Sox were as good as they were this year. But I'm going to have to disagree on the NL, and I love me some Mookie Betts, but I think it's Freddie Freeman's time to finally win that MVP award. He was consistent all year, and he's always been consistent throughout his career. He batted .341. He's got 13 homers. He got 53 RBIs. I think it's time for Freddie to finally take home his hardware that he so rightfully deserves just because of all that consistency throughout his career. And he was definitely the leader of this Braves team for me this year. So I'm going Freddie Freeman in the NL. I'm going Jose Abreu, even though it should be Shane Bieber in the AL.
Alex, your MVPs.
Man, I'm really torn between both Freeman and Betts for the National League because I don't know. I agree with both what Jacob and Brendan said about both of them. Freddie Freeman has had so much success and is a great player, but Mookie Betts, it's interesting to watch him play. It brings something like a wow factor to watching baseball. Where you have the American League. I am also surprised with the 3 picks because it's I don't know, none of the 3 really stand out to me as an absolutely for the MVP. I think of the 3, I'm going to go with Ramirez. I'm going to stick with Cleveland for this one, but not as I don't think it'd be by a landslide. I think it's the least of the evils type of situation.
For me, I agree. National League with Jacob. I think Freddie Freeman finally gets this year. I just think I think they see that not only is he putting up the numbers, but he's a leader for a very young team, a very young, talented team. And I think that's what's going to nod. And he didn't skip a beat when it came to being a father at all during the season as well, as we see all the videos. Freddie Freeman, MVP and Dad of the Year. Now for the American League, you talked about these 3 being weird picks. Jose had a good first 20 went through a rough patch of 10 and then had a good back 30. LeMahieu, I think he was thrown in there because of his batting average. And then Jose Abreu, I think he was thrown in there because of his long hitting streak. I honestly think it should have been Shane Bieber. When they asked the 14 ESPN experts this topic, Bieber got 2 votes despite not even being a finalist. Ramirez and Abreu were tied for first with 5. I'm going to take Ramirez just because when I look at these two, Ramirez was leading a lineup where he was really the only bat performing, and Abreu was in a lineup where if he would have fallen off, they still would have won each game. I think when you talk about most valuable player, you talk about who brought you more wins, who's the reason you made the playoffs, and Jose, his win above replacement's far and above higher than these 2 players in the American League, and I think his bat brought Cleveland a lot of wins that they wouldn't have had otherwise, and that's why I'm going to pick Jose Ramirez for the American League MVP. It's going to be Thursday is going to be a really interesting night. I think the next 2 nights it's going to be a lot of people know going into it who's going to win, but Thursday night you honestly have toss-ups. I think it's a big battle between Abreu and Ramirez, and I think it's a big battle between Betts and Freeman. And Thursday night at 6 p.m. is when we're going to find it all out.
Well, what I'll say about the whole Shane Bieber should be MVP. I think they're trying to do away with giving pitchers an MVP award. I think they want to specifically make that a position player because pitchers get their own award. I don't think you'll ever see a pitcher. Correct me if I can't remember the last time a pitcher won the MVP.
It was either Kershaw or DeGrom.
I don't think that'll ever happen again. So.
I know Verlander won in 2011.
Kershaw or Verlander, not DeGrom. Yeah, it was Kershaw or Verlander.
Verlander led the AL in wins, strikeouts, and ERA in 2011 and ended up winning the AL MVP. So, I mean, I think they should put Bieber up. If you got Verlander winning that way, why can't Bieber win that way?
Bieber led the MLB.
It could be a position
ERA
thing.
in case. So. The whole MLB and wins ERA in case.
Exactly. He's just dominating. I don't understand why you can't put him up, but who knows?
Well, and within the last decade, this is going to be the 3rd Indian to win a Cy Young. Yeah. That's kind of crazy.
It goes to show, like what we've talked about, the scouts there in Cleveland. They know what they're doing when it comes to the pitching staff. Now they need to figure out the bats. That's for sure. Yep. So we'll move on to the NBA now as we get into free agency, the draft next Wednesday, and the season just a month and a half away. Seems like just yesterday the finals ended. So in recent news, the NBPA, the National Basketball Players Association, has approved a December 22nd start date for the season with a 72-game schedule for the regular season that's expected to end before the Summer Olympics next year that got postponed a year. What are your thoughts on this announcement? Jacob, we'll start with you. You pro Christmas Day games, or were you thinking that they should get a bigger offseason?
I am extremely pro Christmas Day games. It's some sort of normalcy, really, because really, this is just my opinion. Nobody really watches the NBA in October and November. You're mainly focused on football, and then you're just at home on Christmas Day, and then you see like the Knicks come on and always get beat all the time on Christmas Day, but hey, it's still the Knicks on Christmas Day. That's just a tradition.
It's like the Cowboys on Thanksgiving.
NBA, what's that?
It's like the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. They're getting beat, but they're playing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I agree on that. But yeah, it's just a good tradition to keep, I think. It's good for the NBA. It was going to be a challenge, I think, either way, if they were going to do it in January or if they were going to do it in December, because in December, you have the shortened off season, but then in January, you really have to crunch it up before the Olympics. So either way, it was going to really be a challenge. But I think what the NBA did get wrong with this, too, is they should have started free agency already, in my opinion, because we all know how crazy NBA free agency is. Everybody goes from team to team. It normally takes a long time. Kind of like in this past month, ever since the finals ended, they haven't really done anything, which has surprised me, honestly, when you're trying to condense the off season. So I think if they would have started the off season, say, like a week after the season ended, then it wouldn't look as congested as it's going to be. But I still love the decision. I think it's going to benefit in the long run. And yeah, I'm just ready for the NBA to come back. Honestly, I just love the NBA so much.
Yeah, they needed to do what the MLB did. The MLB already had a free agent signing. It wasn't a very big one, but that's why we didn't talk about it. But
Yeah,
the Blue Jays kept the left-handed pitcher, 1 year, $8 million, Robbie Ray, and I think the MLB their offseason's already long enough. The NBA crunching it down, I think, is starting to start as well. Training camp starting December 1st. We're already less than a month away from that, and you still don't even have any idea who could be on your roster.
Yeah, and what I think's messed up about it too. Normally, free agency it goes on right after the draft. The draft is next Wednesday, and like how you said, they start training camp December 1st. So if you're going to start free agency after the draft, you're giving hundreds of guys basically 10 days to decide which team they want to report to, which just doesn't make that much sense to me, honestly.
No, not at all. Brendan, your thought on the December 22nd start?
Yeah, I'm definitely excited. It's kind of crazy, just the fact that usually we have basketball getting played right now, and opening day is going to be in December, but it'll definitely bring back a sense of normalcy when we're celebrating Christmas and being able to watch games from noon till midnight, watching that Lakers-Clippers game with the nightcap. That's always exciting. I totally get why players would be kind of against this, because you're used to having I saw somewhere this is going to be the shortest offseason in any league of all time. So that's going to be really telling to see how the players are affected by this, what kind of talent, what kind of level of play we're going to see right out of the gate. And I'm going to say this now, if LeBron can win another championship this upcoming year, that will help make his case for being the greatest of all time due to the offseason that he's going to face and trying to defend his championship again. I'm really excited about there being basketball back soon. And I'm just kind of, this whole thing in COVID and sports, it's kind of frustrating at times due to cancellations and stuff, but I've been fascinated by the whole thing since the start of March. So this adds to it.
And talking about free agency, we have a list of some big names. This is actually the top 10 list of potential free agents for this year, and then there's some other notable free agents below it. Guys, what are some guys you think will stick? What are some guys you think are on the move, and where do you think they're going? Brendan, we'll start with you.
Well, you have the first guy you put here, Anthony Davis. He's definitely sticking with the Lakers.
I think he'll decline that player option and reconstruct a contract, though.
Yeah, he'll get a massive contract if he opts out, so he's definitely going to do that.
If he's smart enough, he stays and gets another championship. Gordon Hayward is definitely on the move. I don't know where. Andre Drummond with Cleveland, I would expect that he kind of comes to terms and signs there. And speaking of Cleveland, I just saw today that Cavs are putting Kevin Love back out on the market, and so he'll probably not be in the one. Jacob, all right, what?
Well, no, I think that he should get traded, and I don't understand why they can never come to terms with anybody. The Cavs' problem is they overvalue Kevin Love so much. They think that they're going to get first-rounders for Kevin Love. You're not going to get first-rounders for Kevin Love anymore, especially with the horrible contract they signed him to 2 years ago. Really, I'd like to see him get moved too, even though I love Kevin Love. He's been great for the city of Cleveland, but it's just time to move on from him. I don't think he's going to get moved because I think Kobe Altman's still going to be so hung up on he can get a first-rounder out of him when he's not going to get a first-rounder out of him. You just got to accept you're not going to really get much for Kevin Love, I don't think.
About Tristan Thompson, he's on this list. Did you get a first-rounder for him?
In a sign and trade, possibly. I think what could happen is he could go to the Lakers. That's a rumor right now because he had dinner with LeBron, and he and LeBron are great friends. And LeBron gets whoever he wants. So there's really this talk that the Lakers could trade a first rounder. I could personally see that happening because Tristan still plays really good. He's a great offensive rebounder for you. He can really replace like what Dwight Howard was for them last year. But I personally think Tristan has a good chance at coming back to Cleveland if he wants money, because the Cavs can give him money, maybe that 1-year rental, and then try to shop him around during the season. So I can see Tristan coming back to Cleveland, but I can definitely see a first rounder coming out for him too.
Yeah, I look at this list and like I said, I think Anthony Davis does decline and sign. I think Van Vliet's on the move. I think a team like Miami is a team that is going to try to get him. They were just one piece away, it seemed like. I think you get rid of your Dragic is a free agent, so you're losing an older point guard, but you're getting maybe who I believe is the most over or underrated point guard in the NBA, and Fred VanVleet. That's somebody I could see them targeting. Maybe they target Brandon Ingram or DeRozan, but then they'd have to figure out if you sign DeRozan, does Butler play the 3? If you sign Ingram, does Butler play the 2? Like that, then you start figuring that out. But I think Fred VanVleet's going to be a guy that Miami should try to target.
Or a guy like Danny Green.
Danny's under contract right now. He's getting paid $15 million by the Lakers. I don't know necessarily if he's worth $15 million and if the Heat are going to really want to go in on that.
He's not.
And on the Brandon Ingram front, he's going to get paid a lot of money. And the Pelicans, he's a restricted free agent, so the Pelicans can match any offer. The Pelicans aren't going to let him walk, I don't think.
No.
DeRozan's actually a good thing, but I think he's most likely going to opt into his contract with the Spurs because he's not going to really make the salary that he would make if he doesn't opt in with the Spurs. And I don't think that the Heat would necessarily trade for DeRozan. If I remember correctly, it's like a $25 to $28 million salary for DeRozan. So I don't know if the Heat are going to want to go all in on that. I can see him getting Van Vliet, but I also think Van Vliet has the opportunity to go to New York or Detroit because they're going to have a lot of cap space. They don't have point guards there, and he right now to me is the best point guard on the market. So I think he can get upwards of $20 million. So I think one of those two teams can definitely go in on him for $20 million.
Yeah, well, I agree. I think Miami is definitely a team to watch for this offseason because they're probably one of the most exciting teams, at least in the East, and being able to make it to the finals. I mean, given the whole bubble thing this year, but they've got young talent to, for days, and I'll really be interesting to see what the heck they do with these guys.
Yeah, and here's what we got to keep in consideration with Miami too. So Giannis is a free agent next year, and they're targeting Giannis. So there's a lot of rumors going around that they're just going to stay put this off season. Maybe not necessarily the best thing, but if you're going to get Giannis, I mean, might as well just stay put. Because I really don't think the Bucks are going to move Giannis, even though there's talks that Giannis might force his way out. I still don't think they're really going to move him. I think it's going to be a whole LeBron Cavs first go around thing. LeBron kept the Cavs waiting, so that's what Giannis is going to do with the Bucks. I think like superstars trade. I don't know if you guys would agree with this too, though. Bradley Beal on the Wizards keeps saying he doesn't want traded, like he's not asking for it. But you look at a team like the Brooklyn Nets, and they want that third star. I'm personally thinking that they're going to trade Karis LeVert for Bradley Beal because Karis LeVert's young enough where it would appeal to the Wizards, and Bradley Beal's obviously Bradley Beal. So then you'd have Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, Kyrie. I think that'd be a lethal trio right there. And then a guy like Drew Holiday is already rumored to be traded from the Pelicans. I personally think he's going to Denver for Gary Harris and Will Barton. But there's also a ton of other guys that could be traded, like Kevin Love. So it's just going to be really interesting, and I love this time of year, so I just can't wait for it.
Yeah, and next week we're going to get more into the draft. As you said, next Wednesday will be the NBA draft. We'll talk about who we think will be our top picks, top 5, top 10, who's a sleeper, and we'll get into that. And obviously some more free agency talk, and if any news pops up, you'll find it here on RaiderZone Podcast. So that'll take us now to the PGA Tour. And it is November, but the 84th edition of the Masters will take place this week, Thursday through Sunday. Uh, Obviously, we're used to it being much earlier in the year, but due to COVID, we have had to wait, and it's here. We're finally getting it. So Tiger Woods, the defending champ, winning it last year, getting another green jacket. So, Alex, I'll start with you. Who do you have winning the green jacket this year? Do you have a repeat from previous year, or do you think we add a new face to history?
Oh boy, I have a couple ideas, I think, for a PGA Tour. I know Tiger Woods, especially in the media, he's really hyped up, and I know he won it last year. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of Tiger, but that's more for character purposes, not necessarily the way he swings the club, because I know he's very skilled, and the odds are he will probably be playing all the way to Sunday. So, yeah, I see him very likely being in the top. Also, I think Bryson DeChambeau, I think he might make a comeback. I know it feels like forever ago, but I know he won the U.S. Open this year. I think it was in September. So it would be interesting to see if he makes another comeback with another huge tournament. I would be excited to see that. But other than that, I have my bets going on a couple of my favorite players, Phil Mickelson and Bubba Watson. Great lefties. I love both of them. Ricky Fowler, I think I could definitely see him being in the finals this year. And one more player that I think, this might be a long shot, but I really, really, really want to see a comeback by Jordan Spieth. I know, a couple years ago, he was untouchable. And then it's like a couple years ago, maybe 2017, it's like he fell off the face of the earth. Like, you never heard from him. It was almost like he just kind of disappeared. But, I mean, he's always been one of my favorite players personally, and I always think he has a lot of skills. I think he's very talented. And I don't know, I'm keeping my hope with him. I would love to see a comeback by him. I'd like to see him win another green jacket. So that's kind of my take. By next episode, we'll have our answer.
Jacob.
So I love what Alex said about Jordan Spieth. In my opinion, Jordan Spieth plays Augusta just like Tiger Woods does. He just dominates the course. He just can't piece it together to win other than, of course, 2015. 2014, he barely lost to Bubba Watson. 2015, he wins. 2016, he has his epic collapse. And then, of course, in 2018, he had a shot to win it too, and then he collapsed on the back nine. So he definitely has a chance to win it this week. I would love to see him win this week. But I have three people picked out here who I really think have a really good shot at winning. Bryson, obviously. He played the course so well as an amateur a few years back. He had a shot to win it back in 2016 as an amateur. So I think that he's going to play the course well. He's obviously one of the big favorites. For me, he's third, though. I have two other guys ahead of him. Dustin Johnson is one of them. He's just been playing so well in all these different majors. He was tied for second last year in the Masters. So maybe he can break through and win that green jacket. But the guy I'm really looking at that can possibly win this is Xander Schauffele and maybe get his first major ever. Tied for fifth at the U.S. Open. He plays good in every tournament. He's a consistent winner, too. He has multiple wins on tour. So I think Xander can personally win the Masters this year. But really, my personal favorite would be Spieth, but the reasonable favorite for me is Xander Schauffele.
Okay, and Brendan.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have made great points. I don't know what it is about this Jordan Spieth thing, but he's always been my favorite player too. I don't think Tiger Woods will compete this year. Bryson DeChambeau will probably have a really good Sunday, but I don't think he ends up winning it. A guy that I'm really looking at here, I think is the future of golf, won the PGA Championship, Colin Morikawa. Definitely an exciting player to watch on the course. Really swings his irons well. But, man, it's really hard to pick a player because you got an entire field. Dustin Johnson, Justin Thomas, Xander Schauffele. I agree, Jacob. I think he has the potential this year to finally break through and win. But I'm going to go with Rory McIlroy this year.
Oh.
Kind of an underrated guy. Everyone knows his name, but he's just always there. He's always right there. The first win that Tiger Woods won to get his 80th and complete his comeback, Rory McIlroy was right there with him on that final hole. I think he finally gets another green. He won a green jacket before, right?
He's come close a couple times. If he wins the Masters, he'll get the career Grand Slam. So
there you go.
That's another incentive for him right there to go win it.
And there you go. I think he finally gets it, and this is his year. 14-1 odds, so he's right there.
I'm giving you one name. He's a bad man. He doesn't care what he eats. He hits high, nasty bombs. Mr. Bryson DeChambeau. Take it to the bank, baby. I think.
All right, he's gonna need less power though on a Sunday on the 12th hole coming off Amen Corner. So I mean, he's gonna need to calm those nerves down. He can't really be using that power.
Hitting balls 3 football fields length is not going to win you a Masters.
Won
It'll
the
win
U.S.
you
Open.
The long drive, but
It won him the U.S. Open by a landslide too.
The Masters is a completely different animal. Yeah. That Augusta course, it'll eat you up.
He'll sign his name on it when he wins. So that's all we got going on for golf. Next Monday, we'll get to talk a little bit more about the whole field, how they played, who won, who got the jacket put on their back, and it's going to be a fun episode next week. We'll have a lot more to talk about for those first 2 of those 3 subjects. MLB is going to be a little dry here, just talk about free agency. We'll talk about who won MVP, but I think NBA and PGA are going to be really exciting next week. But now we'll get into what's live every weekend. Football is wild. And this weekend did not disappoint. We'll start with the college football subject. So the NCAA. What a weekend it was as number 1 goes down. Clemson goes on the road to Notre Dame Stadium and loses 47-40 in double overtime. DJ Uiagalelei throws for 439 yards and 2 touchdowns in the loss. This was the big thing, though. Travis Etienne is held to 28 yards rushing on 18 carries. Notre Dame's rush defense stepped up the pass defense. Uiagalelei had his way most of the night, but the rush defense was there. Ian Book shines bright as he throws for 310 yards and a touchdown, while Kyron Williams continues to add to his huge season, add why he should be ACC Offensive Player of the Year, as he adds 140 yards on the ground and 3 touchdowns. Guys, here's a stat for you before we dive into this game. There has been 3 total players since 2014 to rush for 3 touchdowns against Clemson in a game. Do you guys know who those players are?
I do not.
Any guesses? One's Derrick Henry.
Okay, I can see that.
Let me pull up the stat. They were all 3 Heisman winners. I can't remember the one's name. Oh, why am I drawing a blank on it now? Derrick Henry, I think, did it twice. And I can't remember the other one. He was SEC as well. But
Mark Ingram, maybe?
It might have been. Well, no, he was before 2014.
Yeah, he was before.
Who was another big-name Heisman player, SEC? It's besides the fact. The fact that Kyron Williams did it. It's another guy that's successful in the NFL, too, which is...
Joe Burrow?
No, not Joe. He didn't rush for 3 touchdowns against Clemson. He threw for like 4. But anyways, Kyron Williams adds his name to any name where you're added to a list where Derrick Henry's on it twice. That's great honors. We see what Derrick Henry does in the NFL every weekend. I mean, Josh Norman knows what Derrick Henry does in the NFL every weekend. So Kyron Williams, huge game. He's getting talked about big time right now for ACC Player of the Week or Player of the Year, and obviously he's ACC Offensive Player of the Week. Guys, for both Clemson and Notre Dame, what does this game mean? Brendan, we'll start with you.
Well, it means that there's going to be a second matchup between these two. And Yeah, so you can look at Ian Book and Kyron Williams and say, wow, they put up 40 points against Clemson. But Uiagalelei exposed this really strong defense for Notre Dame and makes you nervous if you're a Notre Dame fan for the second matchup because they're going to have Trevor Lawrence back. And if Alabama or Florida are in contention for the playoff and you're going to look at a one-loss Clemson or Notre Dame team and evaluate Notre Dame and Clemson based off the ACC championship game, both of them can't go in because you know that they're going to put both Alabama and Florida in because they're from the SEC. So it means we can't really evaluate this game for either team. It's just game one. The real game is going to be the ACC championship game because this will mean nothing if Notre Dame loses in the ACC championship.
Well, for Alabama and Florida, they'll probably end up being the SEC championship, but Florida already has lost. So if Alabama beats them again, I think them both getting in is out of the picture. You might see – you can't forget Texas A&M either. Texas A&M is the team that beat Florida, but they also have one loss.
They're not going in. They're not going in.
No, the SEC has a lot of one-loss teams right now, but I think Alabama is going to be the only one representing, in my opinion.
Here's who you have. Oh, we'll talk about that. Never mind.
No, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, and that leads you to either Notre Dame or Florida.
You're forgetting about a couple teams.
What?
You're forgetting about Cincinnati and BYU, buddy.
Go Bearcats.
I'm being realistic here.
Oh, Brendan, every week the group of 5 teams take the heat. We'll get into it. We'll get into it. But no, I get what you're saying. Jacob, what does this win mean for the Irish? What does this loss mean for the Tigers?
So, first of all, I think that both Notre Dame and Clemson can both be in the playoff myself before I even dive into that. And also, too, just because of the whole Florida and Alabama thing, Florida already does have a loss. And Florida would have to play Alabama in the SEC championship. So, yes, if they did beat them in the SEC championship, maybe they have a case. But I think Notre Dame and Clemson might be better than Florida. But anyways, the Notre Dame, I think that they can be confident, and they should also be very scared, kind of like what Brendan was alluding to. They got a lot more confidence in Ian Book and Kyron Williams because, let's face it, the specialty of Notre Dame is the defense. And so to see your offense really explode like that, that's definitely a good sign. You should really be confident about that. But what you should be scared about is like what Brendan alluded to. You barely beat an injured Clemson team. So what's this team going to look like when they have Trevor Lawrence, who arguably is the consensus number 1 pick in the NFL draft? Like, it's just going to be way more difficult to beat Clemson, in my opinion, with Trevor Lawrence back. So that's definitely something that should scare Irish fans. But for Clemson, it's the same thing. You have stuff to be confident about, and you have stuff that you should be worried about. What they should be confident about is when Trevor Lawrence does come back, you're most likely going to put up better numbers. And not that they didn't put up good numbers in this game, but you'll most likely beat Notre Dame, in my opinion, with Trevor Lawrence at quarterback. But what they should be worried about is that defense, because that defense did not play good against Boston College the week prior to this one, and they just laid an egg this week against Notre Dame. So you need to work on the defense in order to beat the Irish. But I definitely think that this game, mainly Clemson, has more to take out of it because they were so injured and they were in it the whole way. So I think Clemson should be more confident than Notre Dame, but they both should be confident in some aspects, and they both should be worried in some aspects as well.
For Notre Dame, I think this is a big win. Like you guys said, confidence booster. Brian Kelly 0-5 against top 5 teams coming into this game in his career. Now 1-5. You take them, the number 1 team in the country. And I don't like the phrase a beat-up Clemson team. Because the only guy that was out was Trevor Lawrence. They still had the number 2 ranked defense in the country, and Notre Dame put 47 points on them. And they still had all the same targets, the same offensive line, the same running back in Travis Etienne, who was shut down by the Notre Dame defense, and a quarterback in DJ Uiagalelei who would start on 129 college football teams. So when I look at this, I think Notre Dame has all the confidence in the world after this game because Uiagalelei would probably start for Notre Dame. I think the only 3 teams he wouldn't start on are Clemson, Ohio State, and Alabama. And maybe BYU, Brendan. Because Zach Wilson's just on another level right now. But that's just right now. I mean, Zach Wilson could fall off. But right now, before this game, I think Uiagalelei is a better quarterback than Book. Now, Book definitely showed that he has a ceiling, and it's high in this one. But when you say beat a Clemson team, I don't like that because I don't think Uiagalelei is that significantly worse than Lawrence. I think we even talked about his ceiling being higher than Lawrence's. It's just you can't bench Lawrence. I mean, that'd be ridiculous. You know what I mean? And he threw for 439 yards against the number 3 ranked defense in Notre Dame. So I think Clemson should be a little more worried that the ACC might not be theirs for sure now. And I think Notre Dame should use this as a vote of confidence as they go into what looks like a trap game against a 5-3 Boston College team on the road who almost took down Clemson the week before.
That's just the thing. Notre Dame is in a position that Clemson isn't. We're all just assuming that Notre Dame is going to be contending for the spot. Clemson is going to cruise to the playoff.
And that'll take us to our next game. It was a fun game to watch, though, for that Notre Dame-Clemson game. Back and forth affair. So moving on, an SEC showdown. Number 8 Florida takes down number 5 Georgia easily, 44-28 the final score. Kyle Trask throws for 474 yards and 4 touchdowns in the win. Jacob, I'll start with you. Is Georgia overrated, and is Trask a Heisman dark horse?
So I saw this game coming. I didn't expect it to be as bad as it was, which I think shows that Georgia is indeed overrated. Their defense has shown up every week except when they play Alabama and Florida. They've allowed 44 points to each team. So that just shows right there that even though their defense is great on every other week, you can't show up against the big teams. You're overrated. And their offense is just atrocious. I don't like any of their quarterbacks, either one of them that they had in the game. Their rushing attack's just not the same as it has been in years past. So this is just a down Georgia team. And as far as Kyle Trask goes, he's definitely now in the Heisman race, I would say. I think he was just missing that signature game. He has had a lot of big games, but it really wasn't against a team as highly ranked as Georgia. And it was the fact, too, for me at least, that in their one really meaningful game this year, they ended up losing to Texas A&M. So really getting that meaningful win against a Georgia team is definitely going to put him in the race. For me, I'd have him third at the moment behind Mac Jones and Justin Fields, but this definitely put him in the race, and I think he's there to stay for the rest of the season.
Brendan.
Yeah, I'll agree. Georgia's definitely not the same Georgia that we've seen in years past. Stetson Bennett is just not the answer for the Bulldogs right now. Getting benched, and then they have to put DeWanna Mathis in there. They don't have a strong running game anymore like they've been known to have in years past. Zamir Wright and James Cook got, exposed against Florida's defense, who is not that great to begin with. Only 170 yards rushing for Zamir White, uncharacteristic for him. So Georgia definitely not. At the beginning of the year, we all thought that Georgia would contend for the playoff again. Not the case. But I do love Kyle Trask. When Florida doesn't have a strong defense, saw that against Texas A&M. He's been keeping games alive for the Gators. 345 yards passing against Missouri. 416 yards passing against Ole Miss in a game that he had to keep getting into the end zone. That was a 51-35 game. So that right there, so valuable for Florida to keep getting these wins for a lopsided team. I do love Kyle Trask. Definitely a Heisman dark horse. So I wouldn't be surprised if he won it. And for Florida, I do think that wins like this, looking at their schedule, still playing in the SEC. If Kyle Trask can keep winning these games and run the table, I don't see why he can't win the Heisman.
Yeah, it was definitely a game that I thought would be close. I had Florida winning too. I didn't think Georgia looked that impressive against Alabama in the second half specifically. But, I mean, Florida, they've showed their flaws too. Trask, he will be a Heisman hopeful. I mean, anytime you're going to be ranked in the top 10 and you're throwing for over 450 yards and 4 touchdowns in the game, your name's going to be brought up. But for Florida, it's a big win. They move up to number 6 because of it. So they're in that spot where they can take that leap into the playoffs. They keep winning, but like I said before, they have to play Bama next. I do think Georgia is an overrated team. I think the funniest thing I saw was when Georgia's Barstool tweeted this weekend, why can't our quarterback play well, or why can't we have a good quarterback? And Ohio State's Barstool responded, you did. And I think the Justin Fields transfer is still haunting them to this day. If they have Fields, they're a much better bowl team. And because of that, I think it's time. This is where they start falling off. But Georgia jogged my memory. Hearing Georgia, Todd Gurley was that other name for 3 touchdowns against Clemson. So moving on. Number 9, BYU stays perfect. 51-17 blowout win on the road against number 21 Boise State. Zach Wilson stays red hot, passing for 359 yards and 2 touchdowns while going 21 of 27. Is BYU the best Group of 5 team, Brendan?
No. Cincinnati still is for me. Beating up Houston this past week. They're ranked above them. I mean, now they have to play East Carolina this coming week. They play a tougher schedule. And every game, they're playing the same way as BYU is. Every game is a blowout win for them. And it's going to be the same this coming week. BYU doesn't have a game this coming week. I just think Cincinnati is a bit more impressive. They're better coached, Luke Fickell. And I think they're going to have a better case. They have to play UCF at the end of the year. If they can win that game, then they'll have a case even more. But I think if Cincinnati and BYU face each other, Cincinnati is winning that game.
Jacob.
So, yeah, I agree with Brendan. It's close. I definitely think BYU might have the edge slightly on offense, but I think when it comes to defense, Cincinnati has the edge with Luke Fickell at the helm. The fact that they've only allowed 20 points once this year, and it was to an Austin Peay team, but at the same time, they were playing their third stringers by the time the second half was coming around. So really, Austin Peay starters are going up against Cincinnati third stringers, not necessarily like a total showing of their defense. So really, I think the defense is what puts Cincinnati over the top. And I definitely think that BYU and Cincinnati are both going to have their cases at the end of the year. But right now, I do think Cincinnati plays slightly better competition. I don't necessarily think either team's competition blows anything out of the water, but I think Cincinnati plays slightly better competition. They have a slightly better defense. Their quarterback, Desmond Ridder, is no joke either. I love BYU's quarterback, but I love Desmond Ridder too. I remember when he played against the Buckeyes a few years back. He didn't necessarily play that bad either when he came in for relief. So he's definitely a good quarterback. And I think Cincinnati and BYU each have their own cases, but at the moment, Cincinnati is just slightly better than BYU's.
I think BYU is the best Group of 5 team. I think Zach Wilson's far and away the better quarterback. I think BYU's offensive line just makes them that much better, and the defense seems to come up big at all times possible.
Big against weak opponents. Like, it's no contest for them.
Boise State's not a bad team at all.
I'm not talking about Boise State.
They won 51-17, Brendan. I updated you every score.
Talking about Georgia State.
Okay.
Right? They played Georgia State.
They didn't play Georgia State.
UTSA?
Okay, they did play UTSA. But that's not the point. I said, are they the best group of 5 team? Are they the best college football team?
And that's where both Jacob and I's points come to beat yours. They're playing a better schedule.
Barely. I wouldn't even say it's that much better. I would if BYU and Cincinnati played each other, I think BYU would win.
BYU is an independent, right?
Yeah.
Are they in the Mountain West?
Independent.
Okay, so they're not even eligible to get a New Year's Six bowl game. Cincinnati is.
BYU would beat Cincinnati.
I don't know. I think it'd be close. It would be close.
It would be close, but I think
Cincinnati's defense is really good. I think Cincinnati's defense would hold Zach Wilson up just slightly, and I think the Bearcats would win. Personally,
I think BYU would win by 10.
I don't know about that one.
I said what I said. We'll move on. Indiana is a football state, guys. Purdue's undefeated, Northwestern's undefeated, Notre Dame's undefeated, and the Hoosiers are undefeated as Indiana snaps a 24-game losing streak that has lasted over 3 decades as they beat number 23 Michigan 38-21. They improved to 3-0, used a huge first half to get there. And Jacob, we'll start with you. Is Indiana a serious threat in the Big Ten?
We'll see about that. I mean, they've beat Penn State and Michigan, which on paper for Indiana is crazy to think about. But if you look at it, Penn State's 0-3 and Michigan's 1-2. I don't think either one of those teams are as good as they normally are this year, personally. And their other win is a Rutgers win. So really, I don't know if necessarily any 3 of their wins are that meaningful, because I don't necessarily know if the competition is all that good. It's all going to come down to when they play Ohio State. Are they going to show up, or are they going to be the typical Indiana team that they usually are? Personally, I think it's going to be a combination of both. I think they're going to show up more than they normally would against the Buckeyes, put up a little bit of a fight. I still think the Buckeyes would win that game by 2 touchdowns. But really, I don't know what to think of Indiana just yet, just because the competition's records really aren't that good. We don't know if the competition even is that good yet. And it's just going to come down to Ohio State. I mean, it sounds like a broken record, but really Ohio State is just the best team in the conference. And so they're just going to have to see how they do against Ohio State. That's all I'm going to say.
Brendan.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. That Ohio State game will be the big test for Indiana. Everyone has to compare themselves in the Big Ten to Ohio State. They're the measuring stick, and that Ohio State game will probably be, college game day will be there. It'll be flex Saturday night football. The Michigan win, I mean, yeah, that's impressive. You broke that 24-game losing streak to the Wolverines. That is a big step forward in the program for Indiana and the Hoosiers. So that's good. Being able to beat Penn State as well. Penn State's no pushover, but they're not great either. And then Rutgers. But 3 games into the season, they're winning the games that they have to. That's all that matters for them. But it will be the Ohio State game where we really see what kind of team they are.
Yeah, and speaking of Ohio State, then their next 2 games might be their biggest games, at Maryland and then Indiana. You look at Penn State, though, you say they're 0-3, but they've had a really tough start to the season. If Ohio State, Maryland, and Indiana are the top 3 in the Big Ten, that's their first 3 games. And in my opinion, Indiana looked better against Penn State. than Ohio State did. But it's going to be tough for any team to beat that Ohio State team going forward. So to say that, are they a serious threat? Maybe they get to play Ohio State twice. Well, no, because they're in the same side. So it's either they get their one shot, and if they don't win, they're done. But I don't know if I'd say they're a serious threat. Next week they play on the road at Michigan State. That should be another win. You can't gauge off that one again because Michigan State doesn't look that good. But in 2 weeks, that's really going to gauge it. If they can somehow get to 5-0 with a win over Ohio State, then I don't know who'd stop them. But we'll move on to another Big Ten team that is showing strides, and that is Maryland, as they beat Penn State 35-19, and Maryland looked better than both Indiana and Ohio State in this game. And Talia Tagovailoa, 282 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's coming alive these last 2 weeks. Is Maryland a threat, or is Penn State just bad this year, you guys think? Brendan, we'll start with you.
No, they're not a threat because they got blown out 43-3 to Northwestern.
Northwestern's 3-0, though.
But if you're asking if Maryland is a threat.
Yeah, I mean, if they go 7-1 and beat Ohio State, they can get the Big Ten championship.
Well, if they can't beat Northwestern, how are they expected to beat Ohio State? I mean, you're asking a big what if right there. So, no, they're not a threat. And it also shows that Penn State, I don't know what happened to James Franklin. And then that Indiana loss had to be so defeating for this ball club and the way that they lost.
For sure.
I think that shows you how emotional football is mentally, and what kind of chemistry you need to have in a locker room to be able to pick yourself up, pick a team up after a loss like that, and they just couldn't. I think the 2 games against Ohio State and Maryland didn't help, but yeah, I think they're just going to want to put an asterisk next to this year in the record books and just move on to 2021.
For sure. Jacob, your thoughts on Maryland Penn State?
Well, I know what happened to James Franklin. He had his best linebacker, Micah Parsons, opt out due to COVID reasons, and he had his best running back, Journey Brown, opt out to COVID reasons. And obviously the devastating loss to Indiana in the beginning probably put him off track a little bit too. But yeah, I think Penn State's just not the same team without those 2 guys. And really, I didn't necessarily think they were all that great last year after guys like Saquon Barkley and Trace McSorley left the program as well. So I just think that this is a rebuilding year for Penn State. I don't necessarily know if the program is in that good of shape at the moment. I definitely see what Will's saying about Maryland. They definitely have shown some strides, but I'm not ready to say that they're going to come out and beat Ohio State. I really don't think they're a threat to them yet at all. Tagovailoa, he definitely played great. He can maybe cause some problems for Ohio State, but really their 2 wins is a 1-point win against a Minnesota team that is clearly not the same as they were last year, and it's a dominating win against a Penn State team that I think we can all agree on is not the same as last year as well. So I'm not ready to say Maryland's really going to pose a threat in the Big Ten, but I am ready to say that Penn State needs to chalk up the season and just use this as a rebuilding year.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting this game this weekend. You have Maryland hosting Ohio State. Tagovailoa's played a really good last 2 weeks. And remember, Maryland a couple years ago took Ohio State to, triple overtime? Double overtime?
Yeah, I remember that game very vividly. It was like my heart was stopping a couple times during that game.
So to say that Maryland's out of the picture, this is probably the best team they've fielded in the last decade. So I wouldn't put it out of the picture, but I definitely would say Ohio State's my pick and most people's pick to win the game. But Maryland's definitely showed a great last 2 weeks. They've played Penn State better than any of Penn State's 3 opponents. And Ohio State's defense, the second half against Rutgers, the second half against Penn State, and then even week 1, it hasn't looked the greatest, or first half against Nebraska. But if they play a full 4 quarters, I think they can stop Tagovailoa. But if they let up any bit, he's the kind of guy that can burn a defense. That's for sure. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens as number 3 Ohio State takes on Maryland on the road. And speaking of number 3 Ohio State, the AP Top 25 sees a new number 1, guys. So I have the pool attached here. Alabama takes over number 1 as Notre Dame jumps to 2. Ohio State sticks at 3. Clemson falls to 4. And Texas A&M jumps 2 spots to 5 to round out the top 5. The group of 5 teams get no love as Cincinnati drops a spot to 7. BYU moves up to 8, 1 spot. Is there anything you guys would change with this? Jacob, we'll start with you.
Personally, I don't really see anything I would change on this. I thought Oklahoma State would maybe jump up, maybe just like a spot or 2, if we're really going to see if anything changes, because they played a really good Kansas State team. I know Kansas State wasn't really ranked, but they're up there as one of the better teams in the Big 12. So maybe I would have seen Oklahoma State hopping up to 13 where Wisconsin is, just because Wisconsin didn't play last week. So that's really the only slight thing I would see. But yeah, I don't have a problem with Alabama being number 1. I thought Notre Dame maybe would have had a case for number 1, but just the way Alabama's been playing, I can definitely see why Alabama is number 1 right now. But yeah, I mean, really, I think it's fair this week. Group of 5 really wish they would get more love, but unfortunately they just don't get that love. So yeah, I don't really see a problem with the top 25 this week.
Brendan?
If I were to make a change just for the heck of it, I'd put Coastal Carolina above not just Oklahoma State, but Wisconsin. I mean, I don't know how Wisconsin is at 13 when they've played only 1 game. And Oklahoma State has proved not to be the Cinderella that we thought they were going to be in Coastal Carolina. Winning the games that they have to, they're undefeated. I'm surprised Marshall.
Am I hearing Brendan give a group of 5 teams some love?
I know, I was just about to say, that's just craziness to me.
You okay? I'm just kidding. Carry on.
My point is that they're undefeated, but not good enough to be a Final Four team.
Well, Coastal Carolina hasn't passed the eye test, I think. Like, Cincinnati and BYU definitely have pizzazz.
Does Marshall have pizzazz? Like, why are they so high?
Well, because they're undefeated, but their pizzazz was when they had Randy Moss.
No, but I think it's pretty straightforward other than that.
Northwestern's ranked.
Yeah, 3-0. What's your point?
You said that they beat Maryland bad. Well, they're ranked. Maryland lost.
I'm not saying every undefeated team should be.
No, I'm saying you said Maryland had a bad loss to Northwestern. Well, they lost to a ranked opponent.
But the way that they lost, and you're asking if they're a threat.
It was a bad loss, but
it was a bad question, Will.
No, I'm not saying like are they a threat to win the Big Ten. I'm saying are they a threat to upset Ohio State when I word that, because it's obviously
that's what I mean. That's what I mean.
But it's obvious Ohio State's far and away the best in the Big Ten right now.
Exactly.
For me, I agree with Jacob. I think Notre Dame had a case to be number 1. Just because Bama's best win, I guess, would be Georgia, who now has 2 losses and didn't look that good against Bama. But Notre Dame takes down number 1. I don't know. It's tough. I mean, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter.
Another team. Why are they in the top 22? Top 25.
They're ranked, or they're undefeated. 7-0.
Undefeated.
It's Liberty. I don't even know what conference they're in.
They had a win against Virginia Tech last week, though. It was a miracle win, but
yeah,
they beat an ACC school.
They should have lost that game, but a penalty helped them out.
I'm not going to argue that. I mean, I agree with you on that, but still, they beat an ACC school. So give them some credit.
This is such a weird year. I've never seen so many obscure teams in the top 25 at this point in the season.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's mainly just because I think like Liberty's won all 7 of their games, and then you have teams in like the Pac-12 that are just starting out, and teams in the Big Ten that are just starting out. I think that's the only reason why we're seeing so many teams up there.
Purdue will be ranked soon.
I agree with that.
So
But-
if you put in Purdue, do you have to drop out Liberty and Coastal Carolina just to make room for them?
Or Louisiana.
I'd probably drop out Louisiana Lafayette at 25, if we're being honest, if we're throwing Purdue in there.
I didn't even
That'd
see
be
them
my
yet.
pick.
It's a weird year.
Or SMU. I don't think
That's
SMU.
SMU's been pretty good this year, in my opinion. I would probably keep them in there. Not as high as they are. I wouldn't put them 19.
They got beat
I'd
by
probably keep them top 25.
Cincinnati.
Hey, those Bearcats. We know how to do it.
They're going to end up in the Peach Bowl or something, just like UCF.
And then they'll win the Peach Bowl, and then we'll be talking about how they left another undefeated team out of there and how they should have been in the playoff.
And then they'll declare themselves national champions, just like UCF did.
On Wikipedia, it says UCF's champions.
Have a parade at Six
Back in-
Flags.
Back in, what year was that?
Oh, crap.
What?
That would have been about
2017?
3 years ago, I think.
2017?
2017.
Yeah, if you go on Wikipedia, it says UCF's and Alabama are both the 2017 champions. Somebody on Wikipedia is fooling. But so we'll take a look now at Week 11. We have a lot of ranked teams on the road this week. You look at that left column. Seems like every left column is ranked. Brendan, I'll start with you. What's your game of the weekend? Do you have any upset specials for the weekend?
Hard to pick a game of the week. SEC is the SEC, so you definitely watch out for Alabama and LSU, but LSU definitely not the same. Arkansas and Florida could be a good game, 3-3 against 4-1. I mean, that's pretty much it. There's not a lot of exciting games this week, and I think that's why College Game Day is at the Masters. But upset specials for me, I think Virginia Tech has the capability of being Miami of Florida, but I'm not confident about that just because of the way they played against Liberty. And you know, Wisconsin and Michigan, Wisconsin's had a long time off. I don't think did they have their quarterback back? See, negative. I'm not even sure. That's gonna definitely be a scenario if Michigan can bounce back and get a win there. They're home. That helps the Wolverines. Wouldn't be surprised if there's an upset there.
Jacob?
So, yeah, I don't really know necessarily if this is the greatest week for marquee matchups, but as far as upset specials go, I have Purdue beating Northwestern. My apologies. Purdue beating Northwestern myself. I think that it's definitely going to be a challenge for Northwestern to go on the road at Purdue. And
Mm-hmm.
Purdue has been playing really good football this year so far. So I could definitely see Purdue beat Northwestern. I agree with Brendan on the Virginia Tech. I don't really think Virginia Tech's going to end up beating Miami, but I definitely think they're going to give them a pretty big scare. And my game of the week, if I had to pick one, would be Notre Dame and Boston College, because I'm not saying Boston College is going to beat Notre Dame. I'm really not. I do not think they're going to beat them. I just think it's going to be way closer than what it should be, because we see it time and time again in college football. These teams come off these big wins, they're on cloud nine, and then they just fall down because you overlook a team like Boston College, who's 5-3. Their record's decent, but it's not necessarily like how Clemson's record was last week. And Boston College is going to come out guns a-blazing. They're going to come for Notre Dame, and we're going to see if Notre Dame's still really high on that cloud nine and kind of just like underappreciating Boston College. So I think this game is ultimately going to end up being a Notre Dame win by maybe, say, a touchdown or two, but I definitely think it's going to be close for a while. I think Boston College is going to give them a good scare, but that's definitely the matchup of the week for me. There's really not that many great games out there.
I think that 2, 3, and 5 are all on upset alert, in my opinion. think Boston College is a trap game for the Irish, just like you said, coming off a big win. The backup quarterback to Ian Book transfers there and is now the starter at Boston College. There's a story there. I think Tali Tagovailoa, if he can expose the defense, he can do what Maryland did a couple years ago with a better roster and get them into overtime or even win. And I think Tennessee, a team who's 2-4, came into the season overrated, but I think they still have enough talent to upset a number 5 Texas A&M team. And that's why I think the top 5, I think there's a good chance we see one this weekend, but I would say the safest pick is definitely Virginia Tech over Miami. Game of the week, I'd probably agree, is Notre Dame Boston College. It's the Battle of the Legends Trophy, and like I said, the story's there. Ian Book versus Phil Jerkovich. It should be a good one, and it's a rivalry too. A lot of people don't realize Notre Dame Boston College has a lot of history behind the game. There is a trophy involved, like I said, and you add even more to the story with the quarterback situation. So I would agree, Notre Dame Boston College game of the week.
And we got to keep an eye on the Texas A&M game too, because Jimbo Fisher announced today how Texas A&M is shutting down because of COVID protocols. So we don't even know if that game is necessarily going to go on.
Yeah, but Wisconsin,
I didn't even realize Notre Dame Boston College had that trophy. So that just adds, like how you said, to really making it the game of the week this week.
Yeah, and the Holy War? Yep. I think Wisconsin, Michigan also has a chance of not being, as Wisconsin continues to struggle. There's been talks they even shut down for the season, which, if you're Ohio State, you get even easier of a pass.
If they lost this game, and they could still lose this game against Michigan, that makes them ineligible for the Big Ten championship.
Yeah. So that's it for college football. As we'll move on to the NFL. So we'll start with the Buffalo Bills as they take down the Seahawks in a shootout. 44-34, Josh Allen passes for 415 yards and 3 touchdowns, while Russell Wilson throws 2 picks and loses 2 fumbles. That's 4 total turnovers for a guy that we've seen commit like 3 all season. Who lost this game? Was it Russell Wilson or was it the Seahawks defense giving up 415 yards and 44 points? Brendan, we'll start with you.
I think it was Seattle. I was surprised when, Russell Wilson, not his style of play, not characteristic of him at all. 2 interceptions and 2 fumbles. And, Buffalo's defense isn't that great to begin with either. Just an off game for Seattle, and another game that they let slip out of their hands. And all has the Josh Allen and Buffalo making me a believer in this team more and more as the season goes on. Get more impressed with them every week and showing that they are the real deal. I was expecting Seattle to win this one pretty handily, but hats off to Buffalo to win this game. Another statement win that they needed, especially when you lose against Tennessee and Kansas City. So Seattle, though, they need to get it together. Russell Wilson, I don't know what's wrong with him.
Alex, what was more costly, Wilson's turnovers or the defense giving up 44?
Yeah, I kind of have to agree. I mean, with Wilson, it was very off of him, I think, because it's not normally like him to have so many losses and fumbles. So I don't know. I'd have to agree with Brendan on this one.
Jacob?
For me, it's definitely the defense's fault. You can't expect Russell Wilson to win you a football game every single week. Yeah, that'd be nice, but when you're giving up 44 points as a defense, what else can the guy do? He still put up 34 points himself. Yeah, he had 4 turnovers, and they were all costly. But at the same time, it's 34 points. That usually should win you a football game. Giving up 44 points is just unacceptable. And the Seahawks need to really work on that defense. But on the Bills side of it, I think that this was a big game for Josh Allen. It was a much-needed game, too. He's been playing really bad the past 3 weeks after his super hot start. So it's a good sign for the Bills to see Josh Allen really get back on that level. But, yeah, back on the Seahawks side, it's not Russell Wilson's fault. He can't do everything. He's not Superman. you just shouldn't give up 44 points in a football game. You're not going to win giving up 44 points. So it's definitely the defense's fault in this case.
No, I agree as well because, yes, Wilson, 4 turnovers, but he was able to put 34 points up like you guys said. That usually wins you a ball game, especially in the NFL. But Josh Allen comes out and shows that he can torch a bad defense. And Seattle was the definition of bad on Sunday. So the Bills now 7-2. Seattle drops to 6-2. Both still top of their divisions, and something that, if all things work out for both of them, we could see maybe in a Super Bowl. But Bills win this one, and I think it's a much-needed win because the Dolphins are getting hot. So kudos to them. Moving on, the Chiefs. They hold off the Panthers in a 33-31 win. Patrick Mahomes throws for 372 yards and 4 touchdowns. McCaffrey looks good in his return, rushing for 69 yards and touchdown while adding a receiving touchdown. So the question at hand is, where do you guys rank Mahomes and the NFL amongst quarterbacks? Jacob, we'll start with you.
Number 1, and it's not even close for me. I thought that the only guy really that had a shot at challenging him was Lamar Jackson coming into this season, and we've obviously seen that Lamar Jackson is not quite capable of challenging him yet. Right now, I would say probably the second best quarterback in the NFL, and it's a very distant second place, in my opinion, is Russell Wilson, and Aaron Rodgers should be up there as well. But Pat Mahomes, I mean, coming off that incredible Super Bowl run, his MVP season the year before, when really, if it wasn't for just terrible luck down the stretch in that AFC Championship game during his MVP season, he could very well have 2 Super Bowls because he could have beat the Patriots, and then, in my opinion, he would have went on to beat the Rams. So really, I just think this guy is maybe one of the most talented quarterbacks we've ever seen. We don't know that yet. It's too early to say that, but he's on his way to being one of the all-time greats. It's not even close for me. He's definitely the best quarterback in the league right now.
Alex.
Oh, yeah, I definitely agree. Everything that Jacob said. I mean, Mahomes, he's probably one of the best. Like, I agree. It's kind of early to tell, but from what we've seen so far in, the past season, I think he is definitely untouchable. His technique is brilliant, and I think he's one of the best quarterbacks. Definitely untouchable.
Brennan.
I just don't think anyone is close enough to him to be in the same conversation. Thought that Lamar Jackson was going to be, but he's not awful. I think all he does is use his legs. He's not a complete quarterback like Pat Mahomes is. Mahomes can get out of the pocket and scramble and run for a first down if he has to. There was a play this past weekend where he caught the snap on the run and made a touchdown pass like that. I mean, he's doing things at the quarterback position that we've never really seen before. So his versatility and playmaking ability is, bar none, the best in all the league. And you talk about the young quarterbacks. I thought Deshaun Watson was going to be in the same conversation at this point in his career, but he's just not having a lot of help. You see what Houston is playing like this year. And Baker Mayfield just continues to struggle and be inconsistent. But Pat Mahomes, never seen. He's a generational player and is definitely the best right now.
And I agree. I think he's the best far and away. I think he is the exception to defense wins ball games. He's proved time and time again that no matter how bad or good his defense plays, he will put you in the position to win the game. And in this one, Teddy Bridgewater, McCaffrey both have great games. Curtis Samuel looks good as well, but Mahomes outscores them. It's either the Chiefs blow you out or they just outscore you in general. And I think right now with Mahomes, they're the best team in the AFC. Yes, the Steelers are undefeated, but I think the Chiefs have played better teams, and I think Mahomes is going to get you further than Ben Roethlisberger will right now. So moving on, the Dolphins, like I said, they're getting hot. They improved to 5-3 with a 34-31 victory over the Cardinals, who are also 5-3. Tua Tagovailoa goes 20 of 28 for 248 yards and 2 touchdowns, while Kyler Murray goes 21 of 26 with 283 yards and 3 touchdowns. Are these two going to be a big part of the future of this league? Brendan, we'll start with you.
I don't know. I don't think so. Just the talent surrounding them on both teams is not that impressive to me. I think it's too early to tell right now. I know you're talking about if they're going to be the future. I think there's too many players and too much talent ahead of them. If you're talking about that quarterback position, where like Josh Allen, for example, in Buffalo, surpasses them talent-wise and playmaking ability-wise every day. Too early of a sample size from Tua Tagovailoa, just making his first start a few weeks ago. But I just don't think they're going to be in the same category as Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield, where we thought they were going to take the league by storm, but then they really don't. So I'm not, going to go and watch an Arizona Cardinals game because of Kyler Murray. I'm not watching a Dolphins game because of Tua Tagovailoa. So I'm just not fans of them right now.
Alex.
I mean, I'm not sure. Both of them, I think they're both very talented, and they're both young. So they both have so much room for improvement with ongoing seasons in the future. I don't think they're going to define the future of the league. But I definitely do think that they will have some sort of huge impact on them. Just like I said, they both have this talent now and they're young. There's room for them to improve. It might not be a lot for them to be like the number one next thing for the league, but I definitely think they will both have their parts, definitely, for the future.
Jacob?
Well, I don't think either one of them is going to be the face of the league anytime soon. I think it's going to be Patrick Mahomes for the next 10 to 15 years myself. But Kyler Murray and Tua are definitely a huge part of the future of the NFL, I believe, especially Kyler Murray for me. Kyler Murray, what he showed me this season is that my assumptions of him were very wrong. I didn't really think he could keep up what he did at Oklahoma when he came to the NFL, and he did have his struggles last year. But this year he's really cleaned his game up. He's throwing the ball excellently, definitely just because, in my opinion, it's because he got DeAndre Hopkins on that team now. Mm-hmm. So as long as he has DeAndre Hopkins at wide receiver, he's going to have that weapon for him. And Kenyon Drake, when he's healthy, he's a really great running back. So he's got his weapons. I think Arizona is going to be good in the future. And I think Tua, like how Brendan said, too small of a sample size. But when you have a quarterback that accurate and you have a team that's as young as Miami that's starting to come around way earlier than expected, I definitely think he can lead them to success in the future. And we got to shout out his coach, Brian Flores, too. Brian Flores, to me, is one of the sneaky best coaches in the NFL at the moment. He's making that defense great. The offense is functioning really well. I think that Tua, with Brian Flores as his head coach, is just going to get better and better. And I think Kyler Murray, with the weapons he has in Hopkins, in Kenyon Drake, and the offensive-minded coach like Cliff Kingsbury, I definitely think he has room to improve too. So I definitely think they're big parts for the success of the NFL. And I can see both teams, I lean more towards the Cardinals right now, being successful in the future with them at the quarterback position.
Yeah, I think these two will have longer careers than an average quarterback in the sense that they'll be a part of this league. A big part, like you said, I agree. I think Mahomes is the face of the league for quite some time, but I think Murray and Tagovailoa are two quarterbacks that can get your team winning. I also think it helps the coaches they have. They may not have the best teams, but I think Flores and Kingsbury are two of the best young coaches in football, and I think they're also going to be a big part of this league in the future when it comes to teaching these guys the ropes. So overall, yes, I do say maybe the Dolphins and Cardinals aren't going to win back-to-back Super Bowls, or maybe not even win one, but I do see them being teams that can contend each year within their division and potentially make the playoffs year in and year out with these two guys and those two coaches. Moving on, the Steelers remain perfect. It takes a comeback, a little bit of Mason Rudolph as well, but they beat the Cowboys 24-19. They use a 15-0 fourth quarter to win the game. How do you look at this win for the Steelers? Jacob, I'm going to start with you, and what I mean by that is, like, do you see it as a bad win because they barely beat the Cowboys, or a good win because they came back?
I would say it's a good win that they came back, but I definitely think that they should be worried. And I think they should be worried because looking at their schedule now, yes, they're 8-0, but 5 of their 8 wins are by a touchdown or less. So that means that they're performing really well in the close games. And they can very well keep that up, but the likelihood of them winning every single close game is very slim. So when you're playing a team like Dallas, which you're clearly better than, you should definitely handle them way easier. So it's good that they came back from the win, but they should definitely be handling these teams a lot better than what they are right now. I mean, you look at a team like the Chargers, for crying out loud, they lose every single close game. So really, the Steelers are bound to lose a close game. They can't be letting the Dallas Cowboys, who they're clearly better than, just hang around for as long as they did. So it's a good win, showing that they can come back, but it's definitely a time where you should worry because you're not going to win every close game. That's just not realistic to think that you will.
Brendan, thoughts on the Steelers?
I'm not surprised. It's good that what was the question again? How did you phrase that?
Is this a bad win in the sense that they almost let the Cowboys beat them, or a good win in the sense that they did come back and didn't give up?
It's a good win, and let me explain. Because in the NFL, you have 16 games. It doesn't matter how you win; it matters if you win. And I guess I have that mentality because I'm a Browns fan. But you look at the teams that they have played: Baltimore, Tennessee. Strong teams, and even Cleveland, who on paper going into that game was one of the top 10 teams in the league, and they took care of them handily. Also have to keep in mind that their quarterback is 40 plus years old now. He hit 40, right?
Upper 30s, lower 40s.
He's close to 40, yeah.
He's old.
I want to say 39.
That's my point. He's old. I don't know what else you expect out of him. Brought that win back, and he's injured. He's still going to play this coming Sunday. They're winning, and that's all that matters right now. When you're in the same conference as Kansas City, they're not going to beat Kansas City, but you look at the schedule down the road: Cincinnati, Jacksonville, Baltimore again, Washington. Really, the only tough game in the rest of the schedule is Buffalo. So I feel like that's going to be a loss. But when you're the Steelers at this point and you have a really old quarterback and just a few playmakers, winning ball games is all that matters. Doesn't matter how you win; it matters if you win.
Alex.
I mean, when you look at the fact that they went 15-0 in one quarter, I mean, that in itself, I think, is really impressive. But, I mean, when you look at it, I mean, they did in the fourth quarter, which did a complete 180 for the game. But at the same time, it took them 3 quarters to wake up from it, for it. And against the Cowboys, I mean, I kind of agree with Jacob. I mean, it is impressive that they totally changed the game around, and it's unbelievable that they're 8-0. They're still undefeated. But how much longer is this going to last? I mean, if it took you 3 quarters to wake up against the Cowboys, I think that is a huge red flag. I mean, and it hurts for me to say it because I'm also a Browns fan, so it hurts for me to say that the Steelers, I mean, up to this point, have been undefeated and have been doing an impressive job. But looking towards the future, I don't think this undefeated record is going to last for them. And I think this game in particular, while it might have been a great save, I think it just poses as a huge question for the future, like how much longer is this record going to last? Because if they had this much of a struggle with the Cowboys, then who's to say who they'll struggle with a team that they know is better than them?
Yeah, and when I look at that fourth quarter, the 15-0 fourth quarter, that's what I expected to see the entirety of the game. I expected to see about a similar game to Cleveland, 38-7, Pittsburgh win, something like that. It's not what we got. The over-under was 43.5, so if you picked the over, you missed it. The Steelers missed 2 extra points and a 2-point conversion, and I'm sure you're very, very upset with the special teams unit because you lost money. But I think it is, like Brendan said, a good one in the sense that you only get 16 games, and halfway through the season you're already at 8, which is half the season. So in that sense, you're on pace to not only win your division, make the playoffs, but you're looking like you could make a run, especially with that defense. And Minka Fitzpatrick, 2 interceptions. Yes, it was Garrett Gilbert, but still, Minka Fitzpatrick seems to be in the right place at the right time, the ball hawk abilities. And, yeah, it took them a while to get started, but all that matters is that they won. And when you're in a division with the Ravens at 6-2 and the Browns at 5-3, being 8-0 is where you want to be. Yes, it seems like, hey, everybody wants to be 8-0 through 8 games, but when you're actually there in a division as competitive as it is, it's really good for you to know that you have a 2-game buffer between you and the Ravens. Who would have thought? So I do think it is a good one for the Steelers. Now, final game we're going to talk about, Sunday Night Football. Prime time was supposed to be the game of the week. Everybody picked the Buccaneers to beat the Saints. I was bartending that night, and cousin comes in, and she says, "Who's winning tonight?" Everybody's picking the Buccaneers. Said the Saints by at least 2 scores. She's like, "You're crazy." I was like, "Breeze is better than Brady." And she said, "You're crazy." She left. I texted her that night. I was like, "Breeze is a bad man." Saints win 38-3, sweep the Buccaneers in the season, have a 31-0 lead at halftime. Drew Brees shares the love, completes passes to 12 different players. Taysom Hill also has a really good game. 2 for 2 at quarterback with 48 yards. Also has 54 yards and 7 carries and 21 yards on a reception. Hurdles a man and plays with one of the gnarliest bruises I've ever seen on an arm. But this is the question I want to ask you guys. Overall quarterback throughout their career, who would you rather have on your team for a 20-year career, Breeze or Brady? Brendan, I'll start with you.
Who's my coach?
Why does that matter?
Tom Brady is a system quarterback.
So
You're
Breeze.
seeing that now with Tampa Bay. Not the same quarterback that you saw 5 and 6 years ago. Isn't going to go undefeated. Now, he's not going to play this bad every game, but we've been seeing this. This has been a long time coming, his decline. He just does not have the same spark as he did a few years ago, even more than a few years ago. You saw the interception that he threw, getting chased to the sideline and throws across his body off balance. It was a lob, up in the air, jump ball, and gets picked off. You can't have that with your number 1 starting quarterback, especially when he has a resume, a career to back up. Drew Brees, he's been Mr. Consistent. He's continuously takes his team to the playoffs. I know Tom Brady did that, obviously, but knows that he needs to stay in the same system in order to have a good end to his career. Both over 40, and Drew Brees is going to have a better end to his career than Tom Brady.
Alex, Breeze or Brady? I think you're still muted.
I'm sorry. I don't know why it's like I click and it doesn't work. Anyway, just what I was saying was I think Brendan kind of touched on it all for me. I think Breeze, definitely.
Okay.
I would take him over Brady, but
Jacob?
Okay, so at this point in their careers, I'd definitely take Drew Brees over Tom Brady. Tom's just old. I mean, I still personally don't think Tom's playing that bad this year. Yes, he has 7 interceptions this year. He got 5 against the Saints. So he can't play well against the Saints. Everybody else he's playing really good against. So, yes, he's declining, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's a major decline. He's still being a really good quarterback, in my opinion, except against the Saints. But over a whole 20-year career, you can't look at Tom Brady and Drew Brees and tell me that Tom Brady's not better than Drew Brees. I get it. System quarterback. But Tom Brady, for crying out loud, has won 6 rings. And Drew Brees has only been to 1 Super Bowl. So, for me, that's just why Tom Brady, over a 20-year career, is better than Drew Brees. I mean, I don't really even know if I have to say anything else. Like, Tom Brady's been there. I believe it's 9 times he's been to the Super Bowl. And, yes, it could very well be because it's Bill Belichick. But who knows? Tom Brady's still got to be the guy that's actually doing the work on the field. So over their career, Tom's the better quarterback. At this moment in time, Drew Brees is the better quarterback. And I think that's partially because Drew's been in that offense forever. So Drew can spread the wealth over to Kamara, can spread the wealth over to Michael Thomas. He's all comfortable with it. Tom's still getting used to that offense down in Tampa Bay. But I would say over their whole careers, Tom is clearly better than Drew still.
If Breeze is on the Patriots' whole career, he has 8 rings.
I don't know about that one. I really don't know about that one.
He doesn't lose twice to Eli Manning, and he probably beats the Eagles.
See, I just don't know if I can get behind that. I really don't know if I can get behind that, honestly.
I think Drew Brees is the better quarterback. I think Tom Brady's had a better career accolade-wise, but I think Drew Brees is the better quarterback. I think everybody jumps going to say, well, Drew Brees or Tom Brady's throwing to Julian Edelman as his primary target for how many years? Well, he also had Gronk. He had Randy Moss for a few years. He had Wes Welker. Drew Brees, after Michael Thomas, who's only been in the picture for the last 4 years, Marcus Colston is probably his second best receiver in his career.
But my whole problem with Brees, he really got off to a bad start in his career. He really just did not get off to a good start in San Diego. And not necessarily in New Orleans at the beginning was he doing all that good, too. Tom comes in when Drew Bledsoe goes down and takes him to the Super Bowl. I mean, that's whole thing.
That team was
stacked. Tom's been better, more consistent all throughout his career until this point, at least.
My thing is with Brady, he's played on a consistently good team for 20-plus years. The defense in New England has always been good. In New Orleans, the team that Drew Brees started with was atrocious. They get a defense, they win a Super Bowl, and then the defense falls off a little bit. And then as of recently, yes, they've had a defense and they haven't gotten over the hump, but they've been very unlucky when it comes to the postseason as well. A no call on the PI. The Minneapolis Miracle, that's a fluke. That happens. If that play is ran 10 more times, 9 times, that tackle's made. And then the toe tap by Kyle Rudolph last year ended their playoff season last year. It's just a very unlucky feel, for sure, but I think overall Breeze is the better quarterback.
Look, I see your arguments. I really do. And I'm not necessarily saying they're wrong, but at the same time, I mean, I don't think we can fault Tom Brady for having the weapons around him. I think that's just showing how great of a team New England was management-wise. So Tom's just using his riches right there. I mean, I can't really fault the guy for doing that.
No.
So I'm still personally just going to – I still just think Tom over his career. Over the past maybe 3 years, I'd say Drew Brees for sure. But in the beginning parts of their career, it was clearly Tom Brady for me. The middle parts – Brees starting to make an argument. I'd still probably put Tom slightly over Drew Brees. But now at the end of their careers, it's definitely Drew Brees at this point in their careers is better at this moment in time. But I would just put Tom Brady over Brees just because of the better start, good middle of the career. Now the end, I mean, I don't know why he's even playing at this point. Like, I know he wants to play till he's 45, but he's just making himself look bad in my opinion.
Now, I will say this, Jacob, also. Breeze has had to play a division where you have the Falcons and Panthers who have been somewhat decent year in and year out in his whole career. And Brady has played in a division where the Dolphins, yes, they'll have a little fight here. The Bills will be good for 1 year. The Jets, I don't think, have been good at all. I think Brady's had to play 6 games against better opponents when it comes to that aspect too. But I don't know. It's going to be an ongoing discussion. Obviously, you can throw other quarterbacks in there, and the discussion gets even more intense, like Peyton Manning, Brett Favre.
Yeah. And your division argument, I totally agree with that too. Like Breeze has played in a better division, but at the same time, like how you just said about Peyton Manning, Tom Brady had to go against Peyton Manning all the time in the AFC postseason. And then going to the Super Bowl, I mean, if you look at some of the teams he beat in the Super Bowl, Donovan McNabb in his MVP season, he beats him with the Eagles. Russell Wilson in the Legion of Boom with Seattle. I know that was Malcolm Butler. That was definitely Malcolm Butler.
Well, no. That shouldn't even have been a win. If they run the ball, Seattle wins the Super Bowl.
I mean, I agree, but with what happened, I mean, Tom put them in the position to win, and then Malcolm Butler got the interception.
I get what you're saying,
but the
only
blemishes on Tom's career for myself is just Eli Manning. That's it.
Yeah, those were bad. Brendan's like, all right, let's move on to the playoff picture. So, looking at the playoff picture now for the AFC, Pittsburgh's 8-0, has the 1 seed. Kansas City comes in behind at 8-1, then Buffalo at 7-2, and then Tennessee at 6-2. The 3 wild card teams are the 6-2 Ravens, the 5-3 Raiders, and the 5-3 Dolphins, with the 5-3 Browns, 5-3 Colts, and 3-5 Broncos in the hunt. When I say in the hunt, I say within 2 games. That's why the Broncos, yes, they're 3-5, but they're 2 games out of a wild card spot with 8 games left. For the NFC, New Orleans Saints 6-2, Seattle Seahawks 6-2, Green Bay Packers 6-2, and the Eagles 3-4-1 are the 4 division leaders. And that exact order would be the seeding. Tampa Bay has the first wild card spot at 5-3, then Arizona at 5-3, then the Rams at 5-3. Also in the hunt, the Bears at 5-4, 49ers at 4-5, Vikings at 3-5, and the Lions at 3-5, all within 2 games. What are the biggest surprises thus far when it comes to the current seeding? And Jacob, we'll start with you.
So my AFC surprise is definitely the Dolphins. I didn't expect to see them where they're at right now. Maybe in a few years, yes, but with all the young talent, just to see it all come together and put them in the playoff hunt right now, I was not expecting that. And the same goes really for the NFC. For me, it's the Cardinals because same thing. Like they have a bunch of young talent with Kyler Murray. Cliff Kingsbury's a young coach. Obviously, DeAndre Hopkins is proving to be a vital piece to that puzzle, but I didn't expect to see them jump either. So those are definitely the surprises for me at this moment in time.
Alex?
I think I just want to touch on the fact again. I think one of the surprises for me is that the Steelers are number 1 with an undefeated spot. I mean, I know, like we said earlier, it doesn't matter how you win the game because at the end of the day, the number's the number, the record's the record. But, I mean, if you just look at the pattern of how they're winning, it's like either by a touchdown or it's like the last game you're just running it down in the last quarter. I feel like, yeah, they're winning, but I don't think this method, it's not going to last forever for them. So I guess I'm surprised that they are still undefeated, and I feel like it's a matter of time before this method is going to fail on them, and where one touchdown, it's not going to do it because it might be a close call, but it might be for the same reason they won, it's the same reason they lost. But anyway, I just think that is a little bit of a surprise to me. But also, I think a huge surprise is that the Browns have a winning record that's higher than their losing record. I mean, I'm a huge Browns fan, but just pointing it out.
Brendan?
I'll agree with Jacob and say that did not expect the Dolphins to be where they're at right now. But that whole lower tier of the AFC is all basically tied right now. So that can go any which way in the second half of the season. But I know that they've definitely got them beat up, but did not see San Francisco being where they're at right now. Defending NFC champion at 4-5. I know they're kind of beat up and everything, but I'm still expecting them to at least have an above 500 record right now and be in the top 7 at least. So that's definitely surprising for me.
Yeah, I'm going to agree on both takes for the AFC. I'm surprised the Steelers are number 1 overall. I would expect the Chiefs to be there. And then the Dolphins, I think that's an obvious one. Didn't expect them to be 5-3 through half a season, especially making a quarterback change that wasn't really needed. But doing so successfully, I guess. For the NFC, probably just the Eagles being under 500, it still blows my mind. And that's the fact that it could end that way too. But, I mean, I guess if any division is going to have an under 500 team in the postseason, it's going to be the NFC East. I know you know that. And then the Bears, I'd say, same thing for them. Quarterback change, they're still over 500. But in the hunt, and they have lost a couple games in a row, so maybe this is the downturn of their season. We'll see as we go forward. But now we look at Week 10, and Brendan, I'll start with you. What's your favorite matchup for Week 10?
Again, like last week, a lot of not so great games to watch out for, but a couple notable ones: Seattle and the Rams, two teams in top 7. Seattle needs a bounce back win again after losing to Buffalo, so I would expect Russell Wilson to come out just firing and winning that game pretty handedly. But that is my one game to watch out for. Colts and Titans play again, but I don't see the Colts really putting up a fight there.
Alex?
Okay, I know I messed this up last week, but I definitely want to point it out this week. I am really excited to see the Texans against the Browns. I don't know. I think the game in general, I think it's going to be really interesting. Something tells I have hope with the Browns that they're going to go with the 6 with this one. But also with the Browns, I'm just happy we're getting our running back. After a couple weeks out, I think it was week 4 when he was out, but I'm glad to see him back, so I'm hoping that's a really good game. I mean, other than that, I kind of agree. Some of these games, they seem a little random as far as the matchups. I mean, some of these teams I never would have guessed would be with others, but it is what it is. But just being a Browns fan, I'm really excited for that game this coming week.
Yeah, Nick Chubb is activated off the IR today. And other news, Jacob, your favorite matchup for Week 10?
So I agree with Brendan. I really like the Rams and Seahawks. I personally think the Rams can really put up a good fight against Seahawks. I really don't know who's going to win that game, but I think that's a really good game this week. And also Indianapolis and Tennessee. It's a big game for the Colts. They really need to win it, in my opinion, in order to stay in the race for the AFC South. But two other games that I really think could be important. It might not seem important on paper, but I think the Broncos and Raiders is going to be a really important game. The Raiders need to keep winning in order to stay in the playoff hunt. So really, this is just a crucial game for the Raiders in the sense that if they keep winning, they're going to stay in the playoffs. And it's crucial for the Broncos because really with a loss, they're going to be pretty far back with a loss. They might be 3 games back potentially. So this could be the Broncos' very slim playoff hopes on the line this week. But another game that really sticks out to me, maybe not necessarily the matchup itself, team-wise, but just player-wise, is the Chargers and the Dolphins for me. Seeing Justin Herbert go up against Tua, I think that's going to be a great matchup. It's going to be really fun to watch. And like I said, it might not necessarily be a great team versus team matchup. I think the Dolphins will probably win that game. But seeing those two young guns go at it, it's definitely going to be really fun to watch as a fan.
Yeah. So Thursday Night Football, finally, a Thursday night game that's going to be interesting to watch. Colts-Titans, big one for that AFC South division race that you guys are talking about. Looking at the rest of this, Eagles-Giants, I know it doesn't seem like that great of a game, but I guess technically that's still a playoff game, like implications. The 2-7 Giants host the 3-4-1 Eagles. Bills-Cardinals, I think, is going to be another fun one. I want to see what Josh Allen does to the Cardinals defense, and if Kyler can play well against the Buffalo defenses. Cardinals don't want to lose 2 in a row in that tough NFC West division. But the Bills trying to pull away from a very hot Dolphins team, so that one's going to be interesting. And the one you pointed out, Jacob, I was really interested to because of the Herbert-Tagovailoa matchup. But Yeah, I agree. There's some games on here. Steelers, I'm a little interested to see how Joe Burrow plays against their defense. If because he might be the best quarterback that the Steelers have played this year. So it's gonna be interesting to see what he can do there. But he is a rookie, so that's a very intimidating defense to go up against when you are not playing on the best of teams. Now, that will wrap things up for NFL, and it is time for last call. And we got into the winter theme last year, and then, of course, usual common Ohio, it's 70 this week, so winter will have to hold off for a little bit longer. But we're going to go food industry here for our last call. Think big name brands, don't think mom and pop here, but I'm going to ask all three here. You give me your answers and why. Jacob, I'm going to start with you. Your favorite chicken joint, sub shop, and pizza shop. When you think of big name brands, who are they? All right, Brendan, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so for chicken, you have KFC and Popeyes here. I can't tell you the last time I've had either one of those. So definitely between Cane's and Chick-fil-A. I'll go with Chick-fil-A, but it's a slight edge over Cane's only because they're closed on Sundays, and that frustrates me. It's like every other Sunday I have a craving for Chick-fil-A, and I'm like, oh wait, they're closed. But they got sandwiches, tenders. They have more options than Cane's, which makes me happy.
Cane's has tenders and sandwiches, but carry on.
Cane's?
Yeah.
They don't have sandwiches.
Yeah, they do.
Well, no one goes there for them.
Just because it's not their best menu item doesn't mean they don't have it.
No, it's Chick-fil-A for me. I'll definitely go with Cane's sometimes, but
Sunday?
like in Belden Village here, they're right next to each other. It makes the decision very tough.
It does. For you. Not for
Sub
me.
shop, Jersey Mike's all day. And then Pizza Hut. And not just because of their pizza. You get their wings too. Really good like chocolate chip cookie thing that they have. You can do an entire meal from Pizza Hut. You can't do that with Papa John's. And Little Caesars is something I can't say on the podcast. So those are my answers.
Alex, chicken, subs, and pizza. Where are you going?
Oh boy, you're really gonna disapprove, Will, but I'm gonna have to go with Chick-fil-A with the chicken. I'm sorry, I love Chick-fil-A. I'm with Brendan. You know, it's kind of disappointing. They're closed every other Sunday, and the one close to where I live, I swear, the line is wrapped around the building like 3 times. But I think if you're definitely craving Chick-fil-A, definitely worth it. That's my chicken. That's my chicken place. Best sub. I'm gonna have to go with Jimmy John's with this one, only because I have a little bit of nostalgia with this from high school and doing speech and debate. Whenever we'd go away for tournaments, we'd always order Jimmy John's. Okay. So I don't know, it's like a memory for me, but that's why I'd go with Jimmy John's for that one. And best pizza. This one's hard because I'm more of a mom and pops when it comes to pizza. But if I had to pick one, I think I'm going to agree with Brendan. I'm going to go with Pizza Hut because I'm sorry, Will.
The sports team's failing me tonight.
It's just my favorite. I feel like, I don't know. That and Domino's is pretty good too. I will give it. Domino's has definitely come around in recent years because I remember, I don't know, definitely better from when I was younger. Domino's has come around. But, yeah, I'd say those would be my 2 for pizza.
Jacob.
So, best chicken for me, I'm staying with Chick-fil-A. I love the Chick-fil-A sandwich, the waffle fries, just everything about Chick-fil-A except for the long line. That's the only thing I hate about Chick-fil-A is going through the drive-thru. But it's
they
totally
keep
worth
it moving, though.
They do keep it moving.
Phenomenal.
You know, from where I live, though, it normally is like still 10 or 15 minutes, but it could be way worse than some other places. So, yeah, they do keep it moving. So it's mad respect for the people that work there. So, yeah, Chick-fil-A for me, it's not even close. Best sub. I don't really like to eat subs all that much. I don't know why. I just never really have liked it. So Subway and Jimmy John's, I just don't really like it that much. I've had Jersey Mike's once, and I really liked it. So I'm probably going to go Jersey Mike's on that one. And best pizza, best pizza here, I'm not going with any of these typical chains. I'm going with a local favorite of mine. And Alex might know this place too because she's from around where I live in Trumbull County. But there's this place called Wedgwood Pizza that I swear makes the greatest Briar Hill pizza. It's a specialty of the Youngstown area. It's got peppers all over the place. Like, it's just, I'm an Italian. It's an Italian pizza. So for me, Wedgwood is by far and away the best pizza shop for me. Like, Pizza Hut, I love their wings. Their pizza's okay. Little Caesars, no thank you. And Papa John's, no thank you. Wedgwood, though, give me some Wedgwood every single day, and I'm going to be a happy camper.
All right, for me, it's Cane's for chicken, far and away, okay? Their tenders are, their tenderloins, which are premium cut in poultry, and they're fried to perfection. The crinkle-cut fries are fried to perfection, and the toast satisfies all your carby cravings and buttery lusts.
The toast is good. I will give you that.
And you get more of a bang for your buck. At Chick-fil-A, their most popular menu item is like, what, 700 calories for $8? Cane's is $8. You get 1,300 calories.
Who cares about the calories?
You're getting more bang for your buck, Brendan. Cane's sauce is better,
if
too.
I'm eating at any of these places, like, calories is the last thing I'm worried about. When I'm eating chicken, I'm just going to straight out say, if I'm going to eat chicken, that's the last thing I'm worried about.
But Cane's is better.
You can get a sandwich, nuggets, waffle fries, which are phenomenal, and a milkshake.
Okay.
You can't get milkshakes at Cane's.
Okay, but Cane's does have a sandwich. And toast. Chick-fil-A doesn't have toast.
Again, no one goes to Cane's for the sandwiches.
Chick-fil-A doesn't have toast.
And they offer coleslaw.
You replace the coleslaw with the second piece of toast. Who gets the coleslaw? Okay, if you don't go to Cane's to get a sandwich, you don't go to Cane's to get the coleslaw. Yeah, replace it with the second piece of toast if you're a true fan like me. I'm a Caniac, baby.
The fact is that they offer it. Chick-fil-A gets it right and offers you mac and cheese, which is phenomenal.
It's like a toss-up. What do you want, toast or milkshakes?
Cane's is better. Anyways, looking at subs, Jersey Mike's is by far best because I guess it depends on what I'm going for. If I'm going for a hot sub, Jersey Mike's is by far the best. Their Philly cheese is out of this world. And my brother's also the GM of the Alliance one, so he'd probably kill me if I didn't say Jersey Mike's. Now looking at pizza, I was talking big brands. If we're going mom and pop, it's Victorio's here in Alliance. If you haven't had it yet, go out and try it. It's flat. It's served in a bag, too. It's not even boxed pizza. It's bagged pizza. That's how you know it's bougie. But when I'm thinking big name, it's Papa John's. Better ingredients, better pizza, Papa John's. I mean, it's the make your own pizza for me. It's the chicken poppers, not the wings. And the chicken poppers, I do love Pizza Hut's wings, don't get me wrong, but Papa John's chicken poppers are amazing. And I think the cookie's better at Papa John's, Brendan. You said something about the cookie. I think Papa John's has a better cookie. But I think Pizza Hut, my turnoff for Pizza Hut is their pizza is almost just grease with a side of pizza. Like, you know what I mean, though? If you set a Pizza Hut box down on a coffee table, it leaves a grease stain. It's really unappealing to me. And then Little Caesars.
Papa John's not cut their pizza correctly.
Get a knife out, Brendan. It's better. But I agree with Little Caesars.
I don't want to do manual labor when I'm trying to enjoy my dinner.
Little Caesars is the only way I'm buying Little Caesar pizza is if all I have in my life is $5.
Very true.
It's not a pizza. If I have $10, Little Caesars is the last place I'm going for pizza.
They're so bad that they lost sponsorship for a bowl game.
So bad. But that's it for episode 3, guys. So for Alex Patrone, Brendan DeVinny, Jacob Butar, I'm Will Brianza. We thank you all for continuing to listen to RaiderZone, the podcast, as we do it virtually from our homes, different buildings on campus, if you're Jacob. And we just break down everything going on in sports. So thanks again for all of you that listened, and have a wonderful evening.